I hate to break the fishing news after Ramchek, but I'd like to speak about the ice hockey.
Congratulations. You're one of the 13 listeners of the Real Life Podcast.
We just traded a migraine in for like an orgasm.
Might want to mark that down.
Yep. All of my projects are on schedule until they're not.
A member of the Nation Network of Podcasts.
About as funny as we're going to get today.
Welcome in to episode 252 of the Real Life Podcast. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, joined by Jay and Bag Milk today, coming off, without a doubt, the most exciting weekend of the Oilers season. I will talk about that in just a second here. Episode 252 brought to you by Oodle Noodle. When you go in store or do curbside pickup from Oodle Noodle, proceeds of your purchase go towards the local charity. They've already raised over $100,000. It's a great cause. Cure your hunger and help out Edmonton as well. We're going to be joined by a special guest in I'm thinking 5 minutes here. Kyle Brodziak.
Oh, wow.
Oiler. He's taking part in the world's longest hockey game. I'm excited to chat with him, but I'd imagine Jay, Bag Milk, you guys are feeling pretty good after that Oilers weekend.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was the win on Saturday was huge. There was some annoyances for me. They were up by 2 goals and then allowed the Leafs to come back and tie it. That was annoying to me. But they won, so that's all that matters. And then last night's win against Ottawa was probably more stressful than one would expect from a game when the boys score 8 goals, but keeps you alive, make sure the heart's still pumping, and it was exciting. Not to mention I had a fantastic betting day yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
I had a good betting day on Saturday. I was a little late to betting. I had some goal props I wanted to do in my sports book. Wouldn't let me bet them because the game already started yesterday, so that kind of pissed me off. But you know what? We came on Saturday. We showed up. We played hard against Toronto. We played good enough and deserved to win that game. That was really reassuring. Mikko Koskinen made some key saves, especially in that overtime. So there's some promising there. Is he still, where we need him? Not quite yet, but you know what? We played well enough in front of him. So that was a huge win. I expected last night, I thought we were going to be sluggish in the first period, but to be shot out of the cannon like we were, to score 5, that was kind of interesting. So I was kind of shocked with kind of how that game kind of started. And then, we showed our fatigue kind of later in the game and kind of let them back in. There was probably a few soft goals, we'll say, that found its way in the back of the net too, because we had a goalie started his first game, had nerves, took him a little while to get settled in. So, that was going to happen, but, we did enough to win. It's about getting wins, and we won. We won both games on the weekend. So yes, as Oilers fans, we're going to dissect and hone in on all the negative shit, but there is a lot of positivity there. But the thing is we got to keep going. Tomorrow Ottawa's going to be pissed because of what happened. Hopefully the Oilers get a little bit of rest, much needed rest, and can, Ottawa isn't that great, but they can still be pesky as they kind of showed last night. Oilers put a good effort, continue this streak that Ottawa is on, and then set the stage for the Battle of Alberta.
It should be
good. I just think that when you have a situation like last night, I knew it was going to be a weird game once it was announced that Skinner was starting. And that's no offense to Stuart Skinner. Mm-hmm. But the guy, he was their 4th string when the season started, hasn't played in almost a calendar year. His last game was in March of last year. It was his first NHL start in his home city. Leon even said it post game. It was one of the weirder circumstances to have to get thrown into to play a hockey game. But I was just happy for the guy. There were some tense moments and it was a little bit stressful, but what I do know is that the Oilers won, like Jay said, and that Stuart Skinner's got a memory that that's going to last for the rest of his life. So overall, are there reasons to be concerned? Probably, sure. But I'm just going to enjoy the win. I'm happy for Stuart Skinner. Happy to see Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid put on a clinic. Happy to see Nuge get 3 points. Happy Cahoon's rolling a little bit.
Oh,
the secondary scoring came out this weekend, and I think that's important. For as many negatives as people like to bring up, I want to bring up, Josh Archibald scored. James Neal got a pair. Dominic Cahoon got 2. So there's guys that need to get going. Barry got his first last night. So I think that there's some positives that people need to acknowledge as well, because there's some guys that needed goals that got them. And hopefully that kind of breaks the dam down and lets the water out, you know?
We're going to be joined by Kyle Brodziak in just a few minutes here. But while we're on the topic of the games from the weekend, the thing that drives me nuts is through the beginning of the year, everyone's going, oh, the power, like the pessimistic Oilers fans, I should say, are going, oh, the power play's not working. Like they're screwed if their power play doesn't get going, blah, 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 blah. And then you get a game last night where their power play wins them the game and is unbelievable. And you get a bunch of people being like, oh yeah, but they still aren't doing it at 5-on-5. And it's just like, there's no pleasing like a section of the fan base that are just always going to be pissy. No matter how good the Oilers win or what happens, they'll be pissy. But I thought Saturday night, that was the best game we've seen the Oilers play all season. Great. And Sunday night was the most fun we've seen the Oilers have.
You know what though? It's warranted, Yaremchuk, because it's been 14 years of shit, right? So yes, like we're just so like it's just been beaten into us to kind of be like, oh well, but this sucks now. Like it's because we haven't had a run of just being awesome for a long amount of time where we can just walk around being like, yeah, fucking everything we do is good, even our mistakes are fucking awesome and are planned. So I think that's just kind of like a circumstance created by the decade plus 4 of darkness.
Yeah, I guess it might be, but I don't know. I just think like you have games like that where McDavid and Draisaitl are just out there doing what they do. And I sent out a tweet when McDavid scored that goal, and I said, you know, the Oilers fans are lucky because you get to watch that guy every game. And some people really didn't, I don't think, understood what I said because they were like, what do you mean lucky? Like Oilers are the opposite of lucky. But getting to watch 29 and 97 do what they do right now it's worth watching every game. Even if you knew they were going to lose, watching an Oilers game is still must-watch TV just because of them.
It's just for me, like, yeah, Connor and Leon they're in a league of their own. It's just, for me, the bright side from this past weekend was seeing some guys that needed to help them chip in with some goals, because it's going to make life a whole lot easier if they don't have to do it all by themselves.
Yeah, it's going to make winning a whole lot easier too. Like Cahoon, it just felt great for him, man. Like he was so snake bit and you could tell he was doing so many right things early in the season. And then just to get the one, it just shows how the snowball goes too, right? You finally get one goal and then you get a lucky bounce and all of a sudden your game's just at a totally different point and the perception of how you're playing is totally different as well. You know who needs that? Your boy JP. He's got to get a lucky bounce at some point here too, and he's got to start producing.
Well, that's what's funny, right? Because like
chances.
He's got some really good chances and he's had some really good looks, but like Cahoon, he's snake bitten right now. And I think Jesse's going to be in the exact same spot. I don't necessarily think maybe 2 goals in back-to-back games like Cahoon did this weekend, but I think that once he gets that first one, he can just breathe a little bit, because you have to imagine for him getting thrown up with Connor and Nuge has got to be a little bit stressful. He was down on the third line to start. Expectations weren't nearly as high, but when you're on the first line next to Connor, you look over and you see 2 guys that can dish the puck. I imagine he's feeling stress on himself. And I personally believe when he gets his first, which he will, the people like us are going to be more excited for him than he is probably.
Oh, 100%. It's just a confidence thing. Like last Sunday in Winnipeg, he showed maximum confidence, and you could see it as he was trying to make plays with the puck. You can see that his confidence kind of taking a hit, and he's kind of a little bit more nervous with the puck, or thinking more when he has the puck. So a goal can hopefully alleviate that. But one thing I do want to bring up, and it's something we need to acknowledge, is that Josh Archibald is a worthy winger of Connor McDavid's.
I wouldn't be playing him there full time.
I'm not saying he should be there full time, but like there's something there. Like he gets the job done with Connor. He really does. I'm not saying replace Puljujärvi with Archibald, but like the fact that I like what Tippett was doing against Toronto and having him jump back onto double shifting him, having him come on Archibald's line, like Tippett was doing some good coaching this weekend. Like that alone probably saved the game. That last minute goal before the period ended, probably that brought the game back on the rails for the Oilers, because we were losing it again.
The thing for tomorrow's game against Ottawa with Chase on waivers, I wonder if maybe it'll be Bouchard getting the recall and they might go 11-7, and we could see McDavid getting shifted down on that fourth line with whoever. I mean, it'll probably be like maybe it's Nygaard.
Oh, they're not going to. Gaetan Haas is elite, man. Gaetan Haas is
He was good last night. I like
it.
He was good last
flies,
night.
man.
And he flies, and he contributed on the PK. They weren't perfect on the penalty kill last night. I think it's 5 games in a row now where they've allowed a goal when down a man, which is a problem. But Gaetan Haas was noticeable last night in his first game of the year. And I think he's going to stay in.
When it comes to like him or Kara or Shore, like Haas played about 4 minutes on the penalty kill last night, and the Senators had 1 shot on net when he was on the ice for the PK. If he's a good PK guy, which it looks like he is through 1 game, the fact that he has offensive upside and he skates so well, it's a no-brainer to keep him in over Kyra or Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Gaetan Haas is elite.
Yeah, elite.
We're going to get to our guest here today and welcoming Kyle Brodziak to the Real Life Podcast. Kyle, I believe you're quarantining right now for the world's longest hockey game. Is that kind of where you're at in the process here?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I believe it was Thursday night. Everyone went and got tested. All the tests came back negative, thankfully. And now until we move in tomorrow, everybody's expected to stay home and quarantine. So yeah, last few days, that's what I've been up to.
What have you been doing to pass the time?
Not a whole lot. Just trying to get outside in the yard with my boys a few times a day to try kill some time. And other than that, no, just hanging out at home.
Obviously, this year is weird for the world's longest hockey game. Just what kind of challenges got thrown into the mix, having to do a quarantine that doesn't normally have to happen? What else was there that we?
Yeah, you know what? I can't speak as much for it, obviously, as Dr. Sake. I'm sure there's countless hoops that those guys had to jump through to make this all happen. But for me, yeah, basically just going to get tested, doing this quarantine. I know that there's not going to be fans in attendance, so unfortunately, my boys or my wife or none of, I guess, friends or family is allowed to come watch, which would have been nice. But at the end of the day, it's still for a great cause. So everyone's still happy to do it. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to feel, for guys who are returning, I'm sure it's going to feel a little bit different than what they're used to. But for a guy like me, it's all new anyway. So we're just kind of going in with an open mind.
You mentioned it's obviously for a great cause in the Cross Cancer Institute. I was reading Jason Greger's article on your story, and you lost your dad at a young age. How much more important is this game to you because you have that personal kind of connection?
Yeah, it's huge. Not only my dad, but obviously there's a lot of other people in my life who have been touched by cancer as well. And yeah, it's I guess I was talking about it the other day. I think it was with Gregor. Just you're playing your NHL career, you're not really thinking about life type of stuff like that during the game. But I think with this world's longest game, where it's it's a little more laid back and you have time to reflect on different things because you're playing for so long, I guess, that I imagine that, everybody who's playing in the game, there's a lot of loved ones will be going through their mind. And yeah, I'll be definitely thinking about my dad a lot during this game.
So the world's longest game, this is taxing on everyone physically. And my question is how's your health doing? Like, how's your body holding up after in retirement? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I'm not in the greatest shape. I don't do a whole lot of high strenuous stuff anymore. I definitely wanted to take a break from that after doing it for so long. But yeah, just my back is an issue that's kind of I'm going to have it the rest of my life pretty much. I know that already, but last winter, I went through a couple months of not doing very well, where I was in pain quite a bit. But I got kind of, spent some time, got that healed up, and I've been doing, for the past almost a year now since I got healthy. I've been staying on top of my regimen to kind of keep keep everything strong. And thankfully for the last 10 months or so, I've been pain free. So that's a positive.
What's the training process been like for you for the world's longest game? Lots of time on the outdoor rink, just getting used to snapping the puck around again?
I wouldn't say lots of time. I've been on the ice a few times. I have an outdoor rink in our yard here, and there's a pond close by as well. So I've skated a handful of times, but there hasn't been a whole lot of training going on. So it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system, I think, when that first shift, when we're, I think, 4 hours on the ice, that's going to be
I'm sure at first it'll be fun. And I've talked to a few guys like Dustin Nielsen who have done this before, but there are some points in those shifts where I bet it just gets brutally grueling when you're on like 3.5 hours in, you still got to give her for another 30 minutes. That'll be tough.
Yeah. I imagine. I've heard stories about, I guess I think around day 4, 5, 6, from what I've heard, is when kind of the dog days set in. And then you got a few days where guys are probably going to be a little grouchier than normal. And, you're just trying to make it through. I think at some points, and obviously the weather is going to play a factor into that as well. So yeah, it's going to be a grind, but everybody knows it's for such a good cause. That's going to be the big motivating factor for sure.
I'm curious how the hands are feeling, because I was just like, before we started, I was going through the interview you did with Gregor on our site, and I see that the record is about 400 or 500 goals. They're not sure exactly, and that you've been getting beaked in some emails. So I'm just wondering how the hands are doing, and if you feel like you're going to have a chance to hit that record.
I don't know. I don't really know what to really think about that yet. As far as the record goes, I know my hands aren't going to be very good. They weren't great on the best of days, even in my career, but so they're a little rusty right now. But 4 hours that first shift, I'm sure it'll feel like you kind of get it. I'm sure it'll feel like it comes back pretty quick after a short time, I'm sure.
You won't have a choice. You're going to be playing so much hockey. Yeah. That was one of my questions is what's the over under for points or goals? What are we going with here?
I don't know. I don't know what to think. Really, I was kind of trying to do the math. So there's 251 hours, I think. So, and I believe I'm on the ice about half the time. So 125 hours. So if you get 4 goals an hour, that's 500 goals around, I think, right?
Yeah, about there.
Right there.
It's doable.
It's doable. We got a record contender coming in.
it could be doable. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. It'll kind of just be. We'll see how how it's going when we get the game rolling.
I know Sake has quite the setup out there, but it's still an outdoor rink for you being like a small town Alberta guy growing up. Is this a bit of a throwback to your childhood? Kind of like being out on the outdoor rink, what made you fall in love with the game sort of stuff?
Yeah. My dad, he did an outdoor rink for us at home for a few years. And then we moved to another place, and I had a pond that was right next door. So I basically pretty much every day that I remember that it was decent enough weather, my buddies and I were on the pond. So yeah, we spent a lot of time playing outdoors, and that's why I think this is going to be so much fun.
Let's talk about your career a little bit, because your story is great from, like I said, St. Paul, Alberta to 7th round pick to making it to the league. For you, at one point, did you kind of start to think in your life like, hey, the NHL is like an attainable goal here. Like I think I got a shot to make it pro.
I would say that it kind of bounced back and forth. I mean, as a kid, obviously that's all I dreamed about was playing in the NHL. And, growing up until I think maybe my first year junior, that might've been first 2 years in junior, where things aren't going as well. You see the guys that are getting drafted in the high rounds, and so you kind of, maybe there's a little doubt that creeps in around that age. And my 18-year-old year, I had a really good year, but also didn't know what to expect. And then after that year, I got drafted in the 7th round. So I guess at that point, a little door opens, and I guess you can kind of see, even though it's a long shot, you see potential for it. And then, I think, when I turned pro, it would probably not till my 3rd year pro when I realized that I truly felt that I could make it. So, it definitely, there's some ups and downs the whole way, but pretty much, until it actually did happen for real, you never really know.
One of my favorite things to ask guys that have been to this show is, once you finally got there, did you have a moment maybe you were lined up, for a face-off or something like that, and you look across the ice at some of the opponents, and you're just like, I cannot believe I'm here. Did you have anything like that?
Oh, there's lots. Yeah, lots of moments like that. As you get older and you play more and more, those moments kind of go away a little bit. Not go away, but they're just they don't stand out as much. But early on, I remember. Well, there was only maybe 1 or 2 games where I would have played against Peter Forsberg, but he was a guy that I was in awe of when playing against him and watching how good he actually was. That's one guy I'll never forget playing against. Vaguely remember maybe in my first time I got called up playing against Detroit and taking a face-off against Yzerman. That would be it's kind of a vague memory. I don't really know. I can't really picture exactly how it went, but that's probably another one that stands out for sure.
We had Jeff Wojcicki on our podcast a few weeks ago, and he again is a guy who made the NHL from small town Alberta. And we laughed about sort of the difference of, guys like yourself or Wojcicki who grew up on the pond on the outdoor rink and found a way to make it to the NHL. And the kids nowadays that Jeff says he sees come into his junior team in Sherwood Park, that they've been working with specialized coaches from the age of 9 and all that. Do you ever just kind of sit back and kind of compare the era that it's at now, and even like some of the younger guys you would have played with at the end of your career, to like how you sort of came up through the game?
Yeah, you know what, I don't know what to think about how it's going now. I kind of feel like sometimes these kids are going to get burnt out by the time they're in their teen years, I guess. I wouldn't trade the way I grew up. I played hockey because I loved it. I went on the pond because I loved it. I didn't. My mom and dad weren't forcing me to go out there when I didn't want to do that. It definitely is. It's a lot different. Even the last quite a few years of my career, I would say you can definitely sense a change of the way conditioning worked, the way guys were coming in stronger, faster. A lot of things have changed, and it's pretty much a year-round job now to keep your body on top of its game. So it'll be interesting to see in a few years too. Once guys have played their whole career, how they've been able to withstand that. Are guys going to be able to have as long a careers as they did earlier on? That's time will tell.
Obviously, you didn't have a year in your career like the one that's going on right now. Have you had a chance to watch any of the division on division play? And if so, what do you think so far?
I mean, it's awesome right now. I'm not sure, playing the same, I guess, 6-7 teams, by the end of the year, it might feel like overkill a little bit. But it's great right now. I pretty much only watch Oiler games, or I'll still keep in touch. Sometimes if I see a St. Louis or Minnesota playing, I still have ties to those teams, so I'll watch those games once in a while. But I've really liked watching the All Canadian division and watching the Oilers playing it, and it's going to be an interesting year.
What's your scouting report on the Oilers through 11 games? It's been up and down so far. We're trying to figure it out ourselves.
Up and down for sure. I thought I kind of had a feeling after was it Friday night? No, Saturday night's win. After Saturday's win, I kind of felt like that was almost a game to get the ball rolling in the right direction, where they're hopefully going to be able to string a few together in a row now. Just to me, had that feeling about it. Last night was an obviously awesome game to watch. Up and down. It's early in the year. I don't think anybody really knew what to expect with not having a real camp or not having any exhibition games. So I'm sure it's taken a few guys a little longer to kind of get going. But hopefully they'll be able to roll now.
Just touching on that point where you said it takes a little bit longer to get going. We were talking about it the other day, how weird it must be also for new guys coming into a team to not have the normal outlets to bond with their teammates that you probably usually would. Obviously, this is a guess for you, but how much of an impact do you think that has in the early going of a season where you can't do the bar things or the restaurant things or the normal kind of bonding?
You know what? I don't really know, I guess, what to think about that. Last year was different when everyone was in the bubble, and you're pretty much probably all you're doing is hanging out with teammates all the time. To now, when you're traveling, you can't really get together in hotel rooms. You're kind of expected to go. Obviously they got to stay safe and go to your room, and pretty much don't have a whole lot of interaction with each other. Mind you, they're still at the rink every day with each other, so I'm sure they're still getting some decent bonding time. But yeah, I don't know I can't imagine what it would have been like, to especially, once the pandemic started and they transitioned to go into the bubble. I couldn't imagine what that was like for everybody.
While we're on the topic of talking about this year, what McDavid and Draisaitl did last night, like Draisaitl picking up the 6 assists, he was just on fire. In your time, like we sit here as fans and we watch McDavid, go up the ice, score the goals that he does, and it's just jaw dropping. Was it the same when you played with him there? Like, were there moments where you're just sitting there being like, how the hell is he doing it?
Oh, like almost every day. Yeah. Just practicing with him every day and seeing, it's not, you can't say, it's not that it's not surprising. Like every time he does something like the goal he scored the other night, you're still kind of shocked and you're, in awe a little bit, but it's not really surprising because you see him do it all the time. So it's still kind of, it's unbelievable no matter what way you look at it. And Leon too, his game he's always been, ever since I joined the Oilers and played with him, he's one of my favorite players of all time, just to watch. And he's a guy that I just love the way he plays the game. I love the way he thinks the game. And one of my favorites for sure that I've ever watched.
I know this is a little hot takey, but for me, like when you see Draisaitl at his best, like I think it's almost harder to shut down than McDavid, because when he gets that big body going down low, like that reverse check he does where he throws his shoulders back at someone coming on, like when his game is at its best, this combination of speed and size, it's almost like Forsberg-esque.
It's a dominating. He just dominates when he's on top of his game like that. The way, like for a big man, the way the speed he can get up to, the way he uses his body to protect the puck, just overall strength. Like when he's got it on his stick, you're not getting it away from him. And he's also, like when he's moving that fast, he's also got the vision. He can pass off both hands equally well, which is another amazing thing in itself. Can't even say enough good things. It's really unreal to watch.
For Kyle Brodziak, now that the playing career is behind you, have you thought about what's next, sort of? Have you, thought about maybe going into coaching? Have you thought about maybe going into media? Like I'm listening to you give your analysis now and it's spot on.
You know what? I don't know yet. I'm still not sure. When hockey was done, I knew I was going to take quite a bit of time off and not put pressure on moving on to something just yet. I wanted to enjoy my time at home with my family. Just get a real. I've never really, being on the road half the time. You don't really get comfortable. Being at home, and I wanted to really enjoy my home life and get used to being around here every day, and I really am enjoying it. So I haven't started thinking about what's next yet. Obviously, thoughts come in here and there. Do I want to coach? Maybe. I don't know yet. Maybe down the road, that's something I want to get into. I don't know about media wise. I don't know if I'll ever. My mom always said that. She always thought that I could be on the radio or.
Moms know.
Yeah, moms know.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll take some more time and still enjoy my time at home, and then eventually I'll have to start thinking about it fairly soon, though.
After 14, Kyle, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
No, sorry, Kyle. I gotta go full disclosure here. I am a giant Moose Jaw Warrior fan. All my family, Southern Saskatchewan, you are a former Moose Jaw Warrior. I would be remiss to not bring up the Moose Jaw Warriors with Kyle Brodziak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about your time in Moose Jaw. I know we've kind of gone through the career, but I know there's people from Moose Jaw that listen to this podcast, and I would be getting texted if I did not ask.
I absolutely loved my time in Moose Jaw. All 4 years were incredible. I still keep in touch with my billets that I lived with there. Still try to get down to Moose Jaw whenever I can. When I was playing in St. Louis and playing in Minnesota, or I guess Iowa and Wilkes-Barre as well, every year that I was traveling, I would always make a point to go through Moose Jaw, usually spend the night there with my billets, just kind of break up the road trip a little bit. And on my way home, I'd do it again. So I've definitely kept my ties there, and I can't say enough good things. I love being a Warrior. I loved the fact that I spent all 4 years there, and it was amazing time.
And you had the honor of playing in the Crush Can, one of the citadels of hockey.
It was incredible. That was, if you haven't been there, it's tough to really explain. You kind of had to be there to know, the history of it. But it was an awesome building to play for. I know that there's not a guy that I ever played against that said any nice things about the Crush Can. Everybody hated coming there, but if you played there, you loved that rink.
You've obviously played in a ton of full barns at the pro level, but like as a fan, I always think there's just a different energy in a packed like WHL or junior arena when it only seats like however many thousand and it's crammed with probably more than that. It's unreal.
The Crush Can was the best during playoff time where, behind the glass, there's people standing 4 or 5 rows deep. There's people standing going up the stairs. And it's the loudest rink that I could remember around playoff time, just because everything felt felt like you were just closed in. The roof's not that high above your head, and then the fans are, they're crammed so high that like around it. It was just an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah, electric.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. Good luck in the world's longest hockey game. Hopefully we hear about you putting up 400 or 500 goals, but the most important part is that you guys are doing a great thing for the Cross Cancer Institute. So good luck. Hopefully you hold up, and hopefully the weather's good to you as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for having me on here.
There you go. That is
former
Oiler Kyle Brodziak playing in the world's longest hockey game, former Moose Jaw Warrior as well. That was a ton of fun. If he wanted to do media, he could do media. He's good, man.
Oh, for sure.
Natural.
Yeah, for sure. Natural. Yeah, I just salt of the earth too, eh? Just gotta love these small town Alberta kids.
Yeah.
Alberta boys that make the show, they just don't seem to change. Each one we talk to, they're all the same.
It was that era, man, of those just hardworking Alberta guys that grew up on the ODR who would find a way to grind their way to the show. Like, it's incredible that he went from being a 7th round pick to
almost 1,000 games, 917 games.
Yeah.
It's insane, man. And then
he would have played more, but eventually the body gives up.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's the part that's kind of a shame, is that's a guy who probably would have been a good bottom 6 player for another 3-4 years even. Like, he had the ability to keep up still in today's game.
Also, another horrible trade from the Oilers that does not get enough love for how bad it was. I wanted to bring that up, and like, were you pissed and shocked when that happened? Because that was one of the biggest blunders of the decade of darkness, was that trade. Yep.
Now, what'd they deal him for again? Wasn't it like a
4th round pick? I think. Just that it was just, and then that's when like he took his step like that next season. Just gave the Oilers a giant FU that they deserved for doing what they did. And
Brodziak in a 6th,
which turned into Darcy Kemper
and a 5th. Oh man,
which turned into Darcy Kemper as well.
Wow, yeah, that's a brutal trade. Fuck.
Wow, he made the Warriors a 16-year-old. That's no joke.
I'm looking at his Warriors page here, and his last year there's in 2003, 2004, 93 points. He had a big season in Moose Jaw as well.
Oh yeah.
If you're listening to this and you want to see how you can support the world's longest hockey game, Gregor has an article up on the website where he talks a little bit more with Kyle about sort of the impact of cancer in his life. And at the bottom of that, there's a link that will send you over to where you can help out world's longest hockey game out at Sakers Acres. Always fun. I've heard some crazy stories about guys playing in that thing. I think Dusty has a story where he slept in through one of his shifts. So I think they like doubled up his shift or something like that. They made him work a double. So he had to be on the ice for like 8 hours straight or something like that. It's insane what those guys put their bodies through. And like also weather, whatever, man, like if it's minus 25, they're playing.
My body is not built for that.
Yeah, not at all.
The last time I did like Jay, you were there. The last time we did any ODR, like actual games, was we did the Fairmont tournament.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, we were also drinking heavily that same weekend, but I don't know that I could put in an 8-hour shift on the ice.
That'd be good.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot. Even if you're not even like putting any effort, just going for a twirl for 8 hours would be exhausting.
Yeah, no kidding. And that was a good chat with him. I liked how he talked a little bit about Leon and Connor with us as well, because I mean, that's a guy who saw it up close and personal what those two guys can do. McDavid winning first star of the week, I think is what he got, or was it second star of the week or something like that? But either way, him and Draisaitl have combined for like 21 points in the last 7 days. Like it's just fucking nuts what they're doing right now.
Oh, it's nuts. They're going supernova. We need some, what I don't like, if I'm going to be an Oilers fan and nitpick, what I don't like is how many games ahead we are of some of the people, some of the teams in our division. So we need some teams to that are kind of around us to play some games and accumulate some losses so we can really reap the benefits of our hard work. Yeah. If we keep winning, that's the ultimate solution.
Speaking of nuts, our friends at Twig and Berries have some great products for exactly that, including their own line of nutsack underwear. Check them out, twigandberries.ca. Find something you like, add it to your cart, use the promo code NATION15, and you get 15% off your order. Support local, get comfy, no judgment, no shaming, no fancy words, just real men. That is our friends over at Twig and Berries. Again, 15% off with the promo code NATION15. Okay, so the Oilers, this is a stretch here where, and I think I like the point Kyle made as well, where he said that win on Saturday against Toronto felt like, a turning moment almost. And with the stretch they have coming up, where 3 of their next 4 now are still against Ottawa, with a Battle of Alberta mixed in there, if there was ever a time for this team to get hot and get on a heater, it's right now.
First of all, yes. Secondly, I just like knowing that he's only really watching Oilers games.
Yeah.
How great's that? Former Oiler watching the boys do their thing. I like it. But yeah, I think
back to his roots.
Yep.
I think that this upcoming stretch is insanely important. They need to just sweep the Tide with Ottawa because they're playing them a bunch, and just, the boys are going to get fired up for the Battle of Alberta. And I think that's bad news for Calgary.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Oh yeah. We're getting hot at the right time.
Because I think that I was watching a couple of Calgary games, and they're relying very, very heavily on Markstrom. Very heavily.
Oh, yeah.
And if the boys start to get hot, like Leon and Connor are already hot. They're red hot. But if some of the other boys can start chip in with some goals here and start feeling things, that's bad news. Bad news.
Yeah, do the Flames play the night before, or do they still have the day off before they play Edmonton? I'm just checking that right now. No, they do play. They play Thursday. So yeah, they'll likely have Markstrom between the pipes when they play the Oilers on Saturday night. First Battle of Alberta of the season there. Yeah, you mentioned the games played, and I didn't really even look that closely at it, but Edmonton and Vancouver with 11, Toronto with 10, Winnipeg, Montreal with 8, and Calgary down there with just 7 games played. Honestly, though, like the back-to-backs will always be tough. And the fact that Edmonton's been able to, in their back-to-back so far, they won the second one against Vancouver, and now they won the second one against Ottawa. I don't know what it is about this team, but they always win the second half of back-to-back games. It's weird.
It is weird.
It is
like even
weird.
dating back last year, they were like 8-1 or something like that in the second half of back-to-backs.
this weekend was huge. They needed those points. All I could think about, I was writing the GDB on The Nation on Saturday morning, and the difference between 4-6 and 3-7 to me was just monstrous. Yeah. So to have that like a perfect weekend in terms of points collected that's massive, because now they're a game away from 500, and okay, sputtering start, but now the work begins.
While we're just throwing around hockey questions, like that Senators team is really, really bad. And like,
I didn't expect them to be this bad.
Exactly. We talked about this to start the year. And Jay,
I bet on them to make the playoffs. They were my sneaky, like they're peskier than people think. Like I think they can make the playoffs. Boy, was I wrong, but I'm happy I'm wrong.
They're 1-7-1 through 9 games. If I set the over under at 9.5 wins, do you think they get it in 56 games?
Yeah.
You think they will?
Yeah.
That's so rude to suggest that.
I'm just saying, man. Like I could see them going like 9 and 47.
They're going to get 10 wins. They will. It's just, I don't know how much more than that, but yeah, I do think they will. It's just, I got to say, like, when they signed Matt Murray, I was like, okay, that's a reasonable bet, but I don't know if I can remember an Oilers game where they had another goalie hooked as quickly as they did with Murray last night. It's just, what happened to that dude?
That was fast.
I think the group in front of him ain't good either, but yeah, they did. They had him out there in like, what was it, 3 minutes or something like that?
Well, I mean, the other goalie hung in there for 5. Like,
yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, and first of all, I never heard of Hoegberg until yesterday. I didn't know that was a person that existed. So, like, what's going on in Ottawa right now is wild to watch.
Also, that Mike Riley, the defenseman, that shift he had in the first period where he threw just a pizza up the middle right to 3 Oilers, and then there's no pressure on him behind the net, and he eats shit. And then he thought it was his only play was just to grab Haas's stick, like in plain sight. That was one of the worst penalties I've seen taken this year. Like, so egregious. Like, what are you doing? Oh, that team. And it's not even like their young players are bad. Their young players are actually the only ones who are good. Like, their vets are just like generally sloppy and not very good.
I know by the time this comes out, it's almost going to be redundant anyway, but you think that Ottawa might take a flyer on Chiasson on waivers?
That'd be nice if you can lose that cap hit. I mean, if it goes down to the minors, it's only like $1 million on your books anyways, so you're okay-ish. But if you can get someone, if someone wants to take that $2 million off your hands,
they got space.
They got space.
They need vets. They need vets that can play and contribute. And maybe Chiasson is the answer for the Senators.
I was surprised. Speaking of waivers, I was surprised that Tony DeAngelo cleared. I know it's a whole fucking issue right now with like what's going on there, but like he puts up a ton of points.
Grab him. I know, but I don't.
He's just too toxic, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it's safe to assume he's a bad person.
Yeah, I think so. If you're starting that much shit in your own room, and like you go back to his junior career with the slurs and all that, like, yeah, not a great guy by the sounds of it.
Like the league just bounded together and just like, I think this is just like he's on his way out. Like he's going to Russia.
I'll readily admit I didn't. I knew some of the stuff about like the Trump takes and things like that from DeAngelo, but I didn't know a whole lot about his history. All I could think of is yesterday when I saw him get put on waivers is how big a shitbag is this guy that got 53 points in 68 games with the Rangers last year, and they're putting him on waivers. Like, he's got the skill, but like clearly the person is just not worth the hassle.
There is, with every player in the league, there is a point where if you're too much of a headache, it don't matter how good you are. Like at some point, a team's just going to be like, nope, that's enough. Don't care. He had like the 3rd most points or something amongst D-men last year. And it was just like, don't give a shit if you're that much of a headache. Like, especially in a sport like hockey, where like the element of camaraderie and like having a strong room, I think is like super important. To have a guy like that who's running his mouth and getting in fights with your fucking goalies. Like, come on, man. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. He should be, you should have been a golfer, it seems. Solo sport, do it on his own.
Patrick Reed.
That's a whole fucking shitstorm, isn't it? Patrick Reed. Isn't that got a burner account drama associated with it? And going after Rory McIlroy?
Yeah.
Context, please.
So I don't really know the full story, but basically Patrick Reed was kind of caught skirting the rules a little bit on Saturday at a golf tournament. And Patrick Reed already has the reputation of being golf's villain. Like, he's the villain of the PGA Tour. Not a lot of guys like him.
Busted cheating before.
Yeah. So basically, I think he sort of improved his lie. Like he moved a ball when he shouldn't have been allowed to move a ball. And then he called over the rules official and was like, whoa, I didn't know. I didn't mean to, blah, blah, blah. And a bunch of golfers got mad at him for fucking breaking the rules. And he went on to win the tournament. So people are pissy.
He was saying his ball, he said his ball was embedded in the ground, but you're supposed to bring like an official over to deem that it was and then move it. He just grabbed it and moved it and was like, well, I didn't see it bounce. It was embedded. So I dropped it. And, but in fact, it did bounce. So it wasn't embedded. But then I think he was going after McElroy or something for the same thing.
So he tweeted from his account, this whole thing being like, Rory McIlroy did the same fucking thing, blah, 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 blah. And then I think that tweet got deleted from his account. And then the same tweet word for word was on like this like golf fan 1900 account. Yeah. So everyone was like, you're clearly using a burner.
That's the best.
That guy just keeps his reputation just keeps taking a hit, self-imposed, of course, but not a lot of people like him.
All right, as we move towards wrapping this one up, the only thing I regret, as we were talking about current Oilers, with former Oiler Kyle Brodziak, is Darnell Nurse. I've talked about him now on a Beatcast and on Oilers Nation Radio. He's not getting enough respect right now from Oilers fans, and that's a rant I have. Like, look at the numbers. That's all I say. Is people. I had someone text today and go, "Oh, he just lays on the ice like a fucking starfish on all the penalty killing." Blah 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 blah. 5-on-5, Darnell Nurse has played the most minutes in the NHL. Like forwards, defensemen don't matter. Darnell Nurse has played 212 minutes. Seth Jones is in second with 194. Nurse is pretty much the Oilers, or not pretty much. He is the Oilers' number one D-man, pretty much always going up against the other team's best players. He is getting the toughest assignments, playing a ton of minutes, 5-on-5, penalty kill, power play, all of it. And with that, he's been on the ice for 13 goals scored at 5-on-5 and only 10 goals against. He's been on the ice for 128 shots for, only 123 shots against. I have not been the biggest Darnell Nurse fan in the past. I always felt like he got a little bit overvalued for his toughness and things like that. But now it feels like there's a portion of the fan base that's undervaluing him, in my opinion. And I've turned into a massive Darnell Nurse fan over the last 11 games. He's been great.
He you know what, completely warrants the conversation. Like, I think, there was right to be concerned with them leading up until this season because of, how he's played and whatnot. But, defensively, he's been good. He adds value on the rush. Like, he can join the play. He can move the puck out of the zone where a lot of our Ds struggle with even making a first pass. We love going off the glass. So, he's been an asset to the team and contributing to the good things that are happening on the ice. Like, it's good to see. God, and he can skate. He can just move around the ice so well.
Yeah.
He's got from the day he showed up, we always knew that Darnell Nurse had all the tools. It was just a matter of hoping whether he could put it all together. And I think that I really appreciate the way he's accepted the challenge of having to fill Clefbaum's shoes that he's out. I think that pairing of he and Bear have looked really, really good for the most part.
Just when I'm looking at the list right now, this just caught my attention. But in the NHL, the top 25 ice time leaders, 24 of them are defensemen. Can you guess who the only forward is in the top 25?
Connor.
Right, it's Connor.
Dude,
he's played 175 minutes at 5-on-5, and that's easily the most out of forwards.
It's like Jay said,
you're playing him too much. He's the fucking best player in the world. Like, you can't play that guy enough.
That's like saying I was going to say, that's like
Jay
saying
said, to have him mixed in on that fourth line every now and then, that's
genius.
Bonus McDavid time, and I love it.
It's like saying the Kansas City Chiefs throw the ball too much with Patrick Mahomes. Like, nah, man, just keep throwing McDavid over the boards. I love the idea of him playing with that fourth line as well, because if Archibald can succeed to them, I think Nygaard looks fine with McDavid or Ennis. Like, build a second line for him. Like, that's a matchup nightmare for the other team. If they'd have to worry about McDavid 1, Draisaitl 2, and then McDavid getting thrown back in all the time, genius.
Yeah. And again, I think that it's gonna go even further if Tippett keeps throwing him out with that fourth line, and you've got the other line scoring as well and chipping in with the secondary offense, that's going to be a big problem, like Tyler said, for matchups. And we know how good Connor is, and we know how good he can make other people. And guys that can cash like an Archibald, they're going to benefit from it too, which makes us benefit.
It's simple math. Any team that can have one line of Connor McDavid versus a team that can have two lines of Connor McDavid, that team with two lines of Connor McDavid is much better.
Yeah, I mean, if they can have a center on that fourth line that can, you don't want Connor out there every shift so he burns out or whatever, but if you can have them holding their own and floating, and then all of a sudden Connor shows up for a shifter every now and then, that's perfect.
Yeah, 100%.
Because he doesn't kill penalties either. So, let Gaetan Haas get his minutes on the PK.
Yeah, that's what he's there for.
They slot in, and
I really don't understand. Just because the Leafs were in town and this was always a big conversation, I don't understand their push to have their star players kill penalties. I will never fully understand that. Like, if they're naturally good penalty killers, like Draisaitl's a good penalty killer. Nugent Hopkins is a good penalty killer. McDavid, that's not his game. But the Leafs like trying to force Matthews and Marner to kill penalties. I'll never understand that. It's way better if you teach your depth players to kill and you can roll your stars over the boards right after the penalty kill. Because if the other team's best players are on their power play, if right when the penalty's over, you get your studs out there, they're getting an easier matchup. It's simple as that. I'll never understand that some teams like need to have their star players like, they need to be good in their own end. And that starts with penalty killing. That makes no sense to me.
Do you think I'm just spitballing here. Do you think it's leaving the potential for creating offense open if you have your stars out there?
I don't think the numbers are there. Like, even the most elite offensive players, are they going to be scoring goals 4-on-5? I just don't think so. Like, a lot of times your mindset is just get it and ice it. Does go back to
the rare instance where there is a PK breakaway. Yes, I would want Connor McDavid taking that breakaway, but that happens so rarely I'm with you. Rest them. Like, we're playing them on 9 lines already. You gotta give them a break where you can.
Before we wrap up the pod, Jay, I do my pregame show as a podcast, but you and Josh have been doing a video pregame show as well. And you guys are switching that. It's live now.
Yeah, it's a pregame show. So it's about the whole thing about it is just about, we're trying to encapsulate just shooting the shit like you would be if you're pre-gaming before going to the game. That's the type of, So we moved to live so that's why we're doing different settings. We're at the Pine today. We're at Campio today. We're at Northern Chicken today. We're Noodle Noodle today. This is where we're pre-gaming. But the thing that I noticed is that poor Josh was spending like 3 hours editing it. And I'm like, it's not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? Like, it's about just like trying to create something fun and have fun. So we decided, Josh figured out, and thank you, your Chuck, for your direction on just doing it live. Because that way it's like, it's an hour of his time versus 4 hours of his time.
I watched the live one and I enjoyed it more. I think it was fun to hear you guys riffing back and forth.
Yeah, it's a little bit organic. Yeah, it's a little bit more. Yeah, it's a little bit organic, and we'll kind of find our rhythm, because like right now it's like we're trying to watch the feeds of, like, because there's questions coming in on Twitter and Facebook, and like I catch myself looking at my phone for that. Like, I got to get my laptop open to, like, so I'm not looking down so much. There'll be some tweaks, but yeah, try to keep it fun and light, 20, 30 minutes. Nothing, to the professionalism of your Chuck providing actual insight as to what's going on. We're more talking about stupid bet props, and I'm talking about how I think Stützle's going to score, because he's the German, like old man Germany in terms of Leon Draisaitl is now like the senior of like German hockey players. I feel like the kid was going to come and try and show his countrymen up.
And he did. He scored.
And he did. And I said you should bet him, but it's just to talk about the nonsense, just like you would hopefully when you can go to the pint before a game here in the next 6 or 9 months, chatting with your buddies about what the hell is going to go on. The one thing I love, like when I'm in Europe and I'm going to the games with those guys, because betting's part of the culture and it's now kind of coming into our vernacular, is like they get around the table and they just like they just like chirp each other about who they think is going to score first, and they all pick their horses, and they do all that, and that's part of the pregame experience. So I really try to want to encapsulate that.
I've even noticed that coming into like the nation kind of orbit as well, because I've been calling it risky business du jour on Oilers games, where one of the random props that I put some money on. I throw that out on Twitter, and the amount of people that are interacting with betting tweets right now is pretty interesting, because it seems like there's a lot of us that just like throwing a couple shekels on the idea of Cahoon getting a goal. Like, I hit a Cahoon goal on Saturday and my mentions blew up because I had mentioned it early in the day. So I think it's starting to come over here. It was plus 370. Whew.
Nice.
That's good money for a guy playing with Draisaitl.
I know.
Nice.
Like, him and Barry, like you got to like think about like not Barry for goals, Barry for points. Like with the opportunities those two have, in the situations they get to play in, like there's normally good value there. And Puljujärvi is going to start scoring, and he's anywhere from plus 275 to plus 370. I've seen him.
My pregame podcast, Bet of the Game, for those who are interested, on the year now, I am 7-4, and we are up 1.2 units. I do it very professionally. I track the money I put in. I do all of that. So we're up.
That's why people need to listen to your podcast, for legitimate professional advice.
Yeah.
I had McDavid over 1.5 points yesterday. I play it safe too. I do. That's why I'm like 4 picks over 500, but I'm only up like 1.2 units. I'm just trying to find good edges here and there. But that's on my pregame pod.
I've been doing I'm calling it my can't miss parlay. I've been having fun with those on a lot of days, where I go money line on favorites or just who I think is going to win. And then I'll sprinkle in a McDavid over 1.5 on the end of the parlay, just to give it a little extra
give it that.
And it hit for me on Saturday, and oh man, was that a nice one. It was a very nice one.
That's good shit. All right. We're going to wrap up here. Episode 252 of the Real Life Podcast, brought to you by Oodle Noodle. Give them a follow on Instagram at Oodle Noodlegram. Plenty of noodle-based memes and more there. Check them out. They're available on delivery service apps as well as for curbside pickup. And shout out to Twig and Berries. 15% off with the promo code NATION15. Shout out to Kyle Brodziak in the world's longest hockey game. They're going to get going here right away. And good luck to them, because that is the long haul. It was fun chatting with the former Oiler.
Lastly, since we're talking memes, I love that people are making more memes from this podcast.
Yes.
If you are making memes from this podcast, tag us in them. We will post them.
Yes. DM them to our real life Instagram, and I'll make sure I'm getting those out on the account, because they're hilarious. The fucking mullet one killed me. I was laughing so hard at that.
It's so good.
It's so good.
So funny.
Please keep making memes. I love it.
Tag us in those, and we'll share our favorites on our socials. All right, that's going to do it. Episode 252 of the Real Life Podcast is over.
Great job on making it through the entire hour of the Real Life Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from.